Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Tenzin Namjong. So I've seen most of you here, except you, sir.
Yeah.
Is this your first time?
Oh, this is not my first time. I've come here.
You've come before, just not with me?
Yeah.
With someone else?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome back. So, a little bit thin crowd today. And I'm not talking about your bodies. I'm talking about the number of people here. But that's okay. Since most of you have been here for some of the Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra teachings, then maybe we can do something a little bit different than what we normally do. That is, spend less time doing the review and kind of saying the context, so we can have more time to just jump into the text. Does that sound? Great. Nonetheless, it is good to just set a little bit of context. So I will try to just first talk about the general purpose and the need to practice Dharma in general, and then talk about of the various kinds of Dharma. This particular text is belonging to the Mahayana class of teachings, so I'll talk about what that means, and then just introduce this text and then where we are, but hopefully that will be very brief, concise, yet clear. Okay? Alright, so if you have the Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra in front of you, then if you want to follow along with me, turn to page 5. Oh, actually, most important thing, at the beginning, we set our motivation for coming here. Okay? So, why do we listen to Dharma teachings? Why do we meditate? Why do we practice? Well, it's not just for our own kind of intellectual curiosity or our own benefit, but rather please think that the purpose of our lives is to benefit all sentient beings. And in particular, in order that we may be able to be of utmost benefit to others, we must first fully complete our own qualities to their highest potential and eliminate all faults of the mind. And therefore, we need to learn about the various methods that will help us transform our minds from the current state to the enlightened state, characterized by the full elimination of all faults of the mind and the full development of all good qualities. And therefore, we're going to listen to these teachings that teach those methods. And please think that whatever positive energy we create in our time here tonight, may that only go to become the cause for all sentient beings, vast as the vastness of space, to quickly be free of all suffering and attain the state of enlightenment. Okay? Alright. And sadhana, please move a little bit. Yes, thank you. Okay. Alright. So now, to begin with, let's turn to page 5, stanza 28. So although wishing to be rid of misery, they run toward misery itself. Although wishing to have happiness, like an enemy, they ignorantly destroy it. Okay? So who is they? They is actually us, or you can think all sentient beings. So usually, I always bring this up, I kind of plagiarize this Holiness the Dalai Lama by saying that the very starting point of the Dharma is a fundamental observation that all beings wish to be free of suffering, wish to be rid of misery, right? And want to have a sense of, happiness, peace, well-being. Okay? But although we and others want to be free of misery, then actually we're constantly experiencing one kind of suffering or another, right? And so why is that? It's because in general we are ignorant of the what causes happiness and what causes suffering. So one of the usually at the beginning of these first day of teachings, I quote various stanzas that encapsulate the entire Dharma into a few lines. And so this one I haven't used in a while, but one is the so-called dependent arising mantra, right? And so that basically says, the history of this mantra, it came about when someone asked Shariputra, one of the Buddha's main disciples, what the Buddha taught. Okay? And so Shariputra a few times said, "Oh, I'm not qualified to kind of summarize. Please ask, go and see the Buddha, go see what he has to say." But finally, after a few, being prodded a few times, then Shariputra uttered this. He said, "Of the phenomena that have causes, the Buddha taught the causes. And he taught their cessation, and this is what the great Shamanera, or the great renunciate, has taught." Okay? So the significance, right? The phenomena that has causes, so suffering has a cause. Yes? And so Buddha discovered, as I often say, right, following the stanza from Nagarjuna, that enthused by great compassion, you taught the Holy Dharma to overcome all wrong views, to Gautam Buddha I prostrate. Right? So the Buddha, motivated by, enthused by great compassion that wishes all sentient beings to be free from suffering, that is the meaning of compassion, right? Then, just wishing them to be free from suffering isn't enough. Rather, if one wants to be free from suffering, one has to, recognize and then abandon the cause of suffering, right? And so here, the Buddha then taught the Holy Dharma to overcome all wrong views. Means, seeing that actually the cause of our suffering is wrong views or distorted views of reality. And in particular, the root, mistaken or distorted view is the view about how ourselves and other phenomena exist. Okay? So it's said in one of the sutra that the Buddhas do not wash away our sins with water, nor do they remove our sufferings with their hands, nor do they transfer their realizations to another mind stream, but rather they liberate sentient beings through teaching reality. Okay? So, since we have these mistaken views about reality, then we suffer. So, the Buddha, not wanting us to suffer anymore, and then correctly identifying the root of our suffering as these distorted views of reality, then taught, the correct view. Okay. This is all review for you. Dosha. Yes? Review? You've heard this many times?
Yes, I do.
And you understand it?
You did.
A little bit. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So in general, yeah, these type of views, distorted views of reality can be summarized into two. There's the view about the conventional worldly reality, and that is the view of karma, that from positive actions come happy results, and from negative actions come suffering results. But even on a more fundamental level, the kind of ultimate nature of reality is, mistaken how our selves and other phenomena exist. Okay? All right. So now, that is why we need to practice Dharma in general, right? Because we don't want to suffer, we need to then get rid of the causes of suffering, and therefore we need to eliminate, get rid of the wrong views we have on the conventional ultimate levels. And basically, that is the essence of what we're doing when we practice. Okay? And so now, here at the beginning of the text, Shantideva reminds us, stanza 4, says that leisure and endowment are very hard to find, and since they accomplish what is meaningful for humanity, if I do not take advantage of them now, how will such a perfect opportunity come about again? So, leisure and endowment in this case means this precious human rebirth that we all have. So basically, we have a body and mind that has the capacity, capability, and potential to practice Dharma in a very, the best way possible. Yes? We have all the outer conditions, means access to Buddhist teachings, and we have the inner conditions, having enough, intelligence, having access to the teachings, having interest in the teachings. Yes? So now, using this life, if we use it properly, we can accomplish what is meaningful for humanity. What is meaningful for humanity? It's the attainment of total pacification or abandonment of all suffering. But even more important than abandoning our own suffering, which by the way happens at the attainment of what we call nirvana, which is the abandonment of the root cause of samsara. Samsara, which is the cycle of rebirth, the cycle of uncontrolled rebirth due to karma and afflictions. Yes? You heard that before? Okay, good. So yes, this, samsara, the cycle of uncontrolled rebirth due to karma and afflictions. Dilshad? Yes. I'll ask you next time for the definition of samsara. So since samsara is projected, caused by karma and afflictions, if you want to be rid of samsara, you need to be rid of karma and afflictions. Yes? That's what the attainment of nirvana is. The abandonment of karma and afflictions. Okay? Alright. But, as great as that is, we're just one. And so our own, personal nirvana or liberation from samsara is actually not that big a deal relative to the countless living beings, that inhabitate the universe. Yes? They're countless. Okay? So, okay, by the way, when I said, what is Dharma? purpose of practicing Dharma. Then of the various types of Dharma, you know, since this text belongs to which class of Dharma? Mahayana Dharma. Okay? So, just if you're keeping track, I've finished the review of general need to practice Dharma, right? And now I'm moving into what is the unique feature of Mahayana Dharma. Okay? Alright. So the unique feature of Mahayana Dharma, so Mahayana, great vehicle, and we can think of the Dharma as a vehicle in the sense that just like a vehicle takes us from a certain location to a particular destination, our Dharma practice does that. Okay? And where our Dharma practice will take us, so to speak, is determined by the motivation with which we practice Dharma. Okay? So if we have the motivation, seeing the relative faults, drawbacks of samsaric suffering, wishing to be free of that suffering, for ourselves, just ourselves, and we, practice with that, motivation to be, free ourselves from samsara, from suffering, then our causes will become a cause. Our practice will become a cause for that to happen. It will become a cause for liberation, nirvana, but for ourselves. So, the Mahayana practitioner, Maha being great, seeing that actually is not that big of an accomplishment from the standpoint of all sentient beings being in the same boat, right? Wishing to have happiness and not wanting to suffer, and actually, although they want to, have happiness, destroying the causes of happiness, although they don't want to suffer, running towards the causes of suffering. Yes? Then they don't see it as a particularly big deal for themselves to have nirvana. And rather, they wish to go beyond the mere attainment of nirvana and attain another goal, that of full enlightenment. So here, we distinguish the mere attainment of nirvana with the attainment of complete bodhi or complete enlightenment. Yes? You know? Okay. Good. So, this is important. So, what did we say, what is the definition of samsara?
A continuous cycle of birth and rebirth. Birth, sorry.
Yes? Uncontrolled. Yes? So if it's uncontrolled, then what causes it?
Our past action, our affliction.
Karma and afflictions. Okay? So how does that happen? How do we accumulate karma? So when I say afflictions, do you know what I mean?
Things that we bring upon ourselves or others.
Okay. So in this case, the afflictions, or nyommo in Tibetan, or klesha in badly pronounced Sanskrit, is like, afflictive emotions, disturbing emotions. So in general, there are 84,000 of them, but they also talk about 10 root afflictions or 6 root afflictions. So the 6 root afflictions would be, anger, attachment, pride, afflicted doubt, wrong view, and ignorance, and then wrong views. Okay. So of those 6, and they're called afflictive emotions because when they arise in the mind, they have the mind is disturbed. Okay? Yes? Alright. So of those 6 root afflictions, the main one is the ignorance. And here, ignorance isn't just a mere not knowing, but it's an active reification or exaggeration about how we exist. Okay? We exaggerate a status that, this kind of larger than life I exists. Okay? Once that happens, then the things that we see helping the I, benefiting the I, we like. And so we develop clinging attachment towards. The things we see harming the I, we don't like. And so we have aversion, anger, malice towards. Okay? So then, when we have this, just say exaggerated sense of I, okay? Then when we act, with that kind of conjoined with our motivation to act, you understand? Then, okay, of course, we can act out of anger or a negative emotion, and then we'll collect negative karma. Or, even if we have a relatively virtuous mind, that, okay, I want to have good resources in my next life, therefore I am going to practice generosity. It's still virtuous, but it's operating with this strong sense of I. So both of those types of actions that are underpinned by the notion of the I, that's how we accumulate karma. Okay? Karma literally means action, but, well, for our purposes now, the contaminated karma is always operating also with the false sense of the I. Okay? Alright. Yes? You understand? Shanti? You understand? Okay. So, there we have the two root causes of samsara, karma and afflictions. Alright? Now, of those two, the more important one to get rid of is the afflictions. Okay? Now why? Because even if, we've accumulated karma since beginningless rebirth, right? So, let's just say for the sake of argument, we will be able to purify that all. Still, if we have the afflictions, if we have the false sense of I, in the very next moment we'll collect more karma. And even one karma can project another rebirth. Okay? Now, we take the flip side. Even if we have karmic imprints, how those then actually operate to propel a next rebirth is at our time of death, we sense that we are ceasing to exist. When we sense that, we freak out because we have strong grasping to our own existence. Yes? That grasping then activates another one of our karmic imprints to ripen. And those two together will then project another rebirth. Okay? So if we don't have that sense of I, the sense of grasping, then even if we have countless karmic imprints within our mind stream, it'll be like seeds. Just the seed itself cannot sprout unless it comes into contact with water, soil, heat, and so forth. Right? So similarly, our karmic imprints, if it doesn't get activated by grasping at the time of death, it won't project another rebirth. Okay?
Last sentence.
Yes. At the time of death, if our karmic imprints are not activated by the grasping to the self, then they won't project another rebirth. that only can happen if we abandon the false view of the self. So the abandonment of the false view of the self then is what is meant by the attainment of nirvana. Do you understand?
So what is the real view of self? This one.
Okay. We're going to cover that in great detail. There's a whole chapter later on wisdom, but I'm just going to give you the correct words. Okay? That the self is merely labeled by the mind. It's merely designated, merely imputed. Nominally existent. Not existent from its own side. Okay? Actually, the first question we ask isn't what's the real view of the self. But really, it's what is the false view of the self that we're believing in. So this is you also have to check. Okay? Yeah. I was saying we're going to be quick on the review. But it never happens.
So you're saying abandoning the root cause of samsara, which is uncontrolled rebirth and death.
No. Samsara is uncontrolled. The cycle of uncontrolled rebirth projected by karma and delusion. Okay?
Uncontrolled rebirth and death. So can we become aware of these uncontrolled rebirth and death and abandon from the root?
Yes.
So how do we become aware?
No. Okay.
There can be controlled rebirth also?
Yes.
And uncontrolled rebirth?
Yes.
How do you differentiate?
Okay. So that's why I was saying, and you should write down all the words, right? So if it's uncontrolled, right? Why is it uncontrolled? Because it's projected by karma and delusion, karma and klesha. That is what's throwing our next rebirth, right? So as I was explaining, at our time of death, if we haven't attained nirvana in this life, what happens? We see we're about to die. We think, oh no, I am ceasing to exist. Then another karmic imprint will be awakened by this grasping. We don't choose which karma. We don't, it's not like, going to the supermarket and looking at all the tomatoes and saying, oh, this one looks the best, and putting it in the basket. It just happens, right? So that's how it's uncontrolled. It'll ripen at the time of death and then project us into another rebirth. Okay? So if we want to be rid of that process, then what do we have to do?
In this birth?
Yes, what do we have to do in this birth? Then, this is what I was saying, we then need to, although we might have all those seeds, if that strong grasping to the I, that's what activates the seed. If that no longer exists, even though there's many seeds, they'll be just like like a real seed that never meets water, heat, moisture, all these things.
Be a dormant seed.
That is exactly it. But how? By abandoning the false sense of I. So that is how nirvana is attained, by abandoning the false sense of I. Which is then why she was saying, so what's the real sense of I? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just for now, we got to understand the mechanism of samsara rebirth. You understand? First, what is samsara? Uncontrolled process of rebirth due to karma and afflictions. Okay? So in general we say, since the cause of samsara is karma and afflictions, if we want to get rid of samsara. If we want to abandon samsara, we have to get rid of the causes. But of those causes, the more important one is the afflictions. And of all the afflictions, I was just saying the 6 afflictions, right? The most important of those 6 is the ignorance grasping to the false sense of self. Yes? Now, why is that called the root of the afflictions? Because the other ones, they operate only when that one is operating. Because, as I was saying, when there is something benefiting that I, attachment. No, benefiting the I, we don't have anger. Benefiting the I, we have attachment, grasping, clinging, we like it. If something's harming the I, then we get anger, aversion, right? Then when we look at others and, we think that, oh, I'm better, pride. If we look at someone else having, some success and we feel threatened by it, then jealousy. So all the other afflictive emotions are operating, because this false sense of I is there. That's why it's the root of all the afflictions. Okay, this is not a conversation. So, the root cause of samsara, then the root of the root is the false sense of I. Okay? By abandoning that, one then gets free of samsara. One attains personal nirvana for oneself alone. Okay? So what I was saying, why am I talking about all this? Because we're trying to differentiate between that attainment, the attainment of nirvana, and the attainment of complete enlightenment. Okay? So by the way, when you're at that state of nirvana, okay, you aren't taking rebirth due to karma and afflictions anymore, because you have no afflictions. You with me? Yeah. Okay. But at the time of death, you're not taking an uncontrolled rebirth anymore, but your mental continuum goes on. It's not projected into the samsara anymore, but you actually don't take any kind of rebirth within samsara. But this kind of uncontaminated by delusions, that type of continuum continues. Continuum continues.
And where is it there? Where is it present?
Okay.
Uncontaminated mind.
Yeah.
Universe.
Yeah. So, alright, I don't want to get into too many details, but it would get reborn in a pure land of the Buddha.
Not in earth.
No. Just that these are not that relevant at this time. Okay? Anyway, so it goes on. Okay. But it just is abiding in, well, there's some details here. Actually, let's skip all over that. Okay? That's not relevant at this point. Okay. So, what we are then distinguishing that, because now, what is that? Attainment of nirvana? Just the abandonment of the false sense of self, and therefore all the rest of the delusions, the rest of the klesha. Those are abandoned at that point. Right? Okay. Now, we are contrasting that then with the realization of a Buddha. And so, as we said many times, Buddha is the complete abandonment of all faults of the mind, as well as the full development of all good qualities. Have we heard that before? Ale. Okay. So the etymology of the word Buddha in Sanskrit, in Tibetan, Sangye. Sang means to purify, Gye means develop. Okay? So in terms of abandonment, what more needs to be abandoned by a Buddha that's not abandoned by someone who's attained nirvana? Okay, here's some more terminology. This is not review anymore. Okay. So there's a few things we have to distinguish. Let's just talk about, for now, to make it easy, the ignorance that grasps to the false sense of I. Okay? Now, that is a mind. Okay? It's a mind that holds as its object the false I. Okay? So, there's that mind of ignorance, and there's the seeds of the mind of ignorance. So, the seed would be the potential for that mind to arise again. Okay? So let's say, right now, or at sometimes, we don't have the mind of ignorance manifest, operating. Yes? But we still would have the potential that that mind could arise again in the future. That's what the seed is. Yes? Okay? So, those who have attained nirvana, we can also call them, another word, arhat, they have abandoned the mind, the ignorant mind grasping to the false self, as well as its seeds. So they not only don't have that mind, they don't have any potential for that mind to arise again in their mental continuum. Okay? But, so what do we have? Ignorance grasping to the false I, its seeds, and then there's one other thing. The imprints. Okay? So imprints, it's kind of like this, yeah? There's the analogy. In a Tupperware container, right? You put onions and garlic, yes? You leave it out in the sun. Afterwards you open it, you throw away the onions and garlic, it'll still be a smell, right? Okay. So the imprints is kind of like that. What that means in experience is that even the arhats, when they open their eyes, they're no longer meditating on emptiness. The world appears just like it appears to us. And by the way, how does the world appear to us? It appears to us as being truly existent. Existent from its own side. Not merely there by the mind. That's why you see in many texts, there's all these mirage, dream, illusion, these kinds of analogies there. Yeah, why? Because the way things exist and the way they appear are not the same. Okay? So these false appearances also happen in the continuum of those who achieve nirvana. Actually, the way that things appear to their eyesight is the exact same as how things appear to our eyesight. Appearance is exactly the same. Okay? Now why? Because we both have the imprints of grasping to the false self. Okay? You understand? Alright. Now, there is a difference, not in the appearance, but whether or not we believe in that appearance. Right? Maybe not us, but someone, totally untrained in philosophy, things appear in a certain way, and we grasp onto, we believe the appearance to be 100% real. Okay? Those who have directly realized the ultimate nature of reality, or shunyata, emptiness, though it appears, it's like recognizing the dream as a dream. They know how things actually exist, so when it appears in that way that's false, they recognize that it is a false appearance. So they say, oh, it appears this way, but it doesn't exist in this way. So it's like an illusion. You understand? Okay. So these imprints of the false sense of self, the ignorance grasping to the false I, that is what the Buddha also abandons. Okay? Now there's some other terminology for that. They call that, the ignorance grasping to the false I and its seeds are also called the obscurations to liberation. Or we can also say the afflictive obscurations. Okay? Now, why? That's the main thing that obscures or becomes the obstacle to one's attainment of liberation. That's the main thing that's stopping. So the Arhat has attained liberation, so that means they've abandoned everything that would stop them from attaining liberation. Yes? Okay. And they're also called afflictive obscurations because it's an afflictive emotion. Right? It's the afflictive emotion or their seeds. Okay? Alright. So the next is the obscurations to omniscience. So that's what the Buddha also abandons. Now, what that means is, the Buddha has a special quality of above and beyond what the Arhats have. Namely, that of omniscience, all-knowing. And as long, as those subtle imprints of the grasping to the false sense of I, as long as that is there in the continuum, it's more like a symptom. The false appearances is like a symptom. But the real thing is that there will be objects of knowledge that are unknown. Understand? So that's what we mean by, the Arhats not being omniscient, although they're liberated. Why? Because they haven't abandoned the obscurations to omniscience. Namely, the imprints of the false sense of self. Okay?
So you say, are they, in this sense, afflictions are root to the root is ignorance of grasping to self.
Yeah.
So why do you say ignorance of grasping to self? You can say that if you can become aware of grasping to self, it can make you liberate.
Yeah. Okay. So, again,
so ignorance is
yeah.
aware.
So just hold on. I've said this, but it's always good to keep this in mind. The way that we use words normally, and the way, what they mean, what they connote when we're in the specific Buddhist philosophical context, sometimes can be very different. In general, ignorance is not being aware. In general, it means not knowing. But here, it's more than just that. It's an active reification, that's why I'm saying grasping, believing in a false sense of I. So it's a mind that believes in an I that actually doesn't exist. Okay? So yes, it's a type of not knowing, but even merely knowing about about the real I, about the conventionally existent I, doesn't necessarily mean you've abandoned that ignorance. Like for example, the other example I use for worldly ignorance, the population of Nairobi, Kenya. Then you tell me it's whatever, 7,582,000, right? You tell me that once, I'm no longer ignorant about that, right? So this is completely different, right? Just that I say, oh hey, like she asked me, what is the true I? You know, what I exists? The I is merely named by the mind. You know? You ask Buddha, you ask Nagarjuna, they'll say the same thing. It's nominally imputed, right? Sorry guys, we still have that ignorance working. It's not just merely finding the right answer, like the population of Nairobi. You know? You understand? So, that's what I mean. It's not just to discover the right answer, but it's to actually, through analysis of the false sense of I, checking out if that one exists or not, and discovering it doesn't exist. That's what we have to do. You know? Not just, we can't just kind of jump to the right answer without clearing away the wrong answer first. And then, even after we discover that that one doesn't exist, we have to meditate again and again. First we'll get a conceptual realization of it. Then we meditate again and again, we'll get a direct realization of it. Then we continue to meditate, and then we'll be able to abandon that false view of the I and its seeds.
So this is the tool you're saying, to abandon these things. To abandon is by conceptual realization, meditation.
Yeah. Yes, the means to abandon, yeah. Okay? Alright. But where were we? Obscurations to omniscience. So the Buddhas go above and beyond that, right? And they abandon the obscurations to omniscience as well. Therefore they become omniscient. Okay. How do they do that? It's still through meditating on the correct view of reality. But they do it conjoined with this mind of Bodhicitta. Remember Bodhicitta? Okay. Thank you for your honesty. Dashad, do you remember Bodhicitta? You do? Tell me. The common rough definition of Bodhicitta.
Who wants to attain enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings?
Okay. So there's Bodhisattva and then there's Bodhicitta. So you said who wants to attain enlightenment for sentient beings? That seems like a person, right?
Yes.
So maybe that's a rough definition of Bodhisattva, but yeah, a Bodhisattva has Bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the wish or the desire to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Yes? Okay? Someone with the mind of Bodhicitta, who's not yet a Buddha, uncontrived mind of Bodhicitta, they're Bodhisattva. Okay? Shanti. Okay. Okay, great. We're on the same page? Great. So, this is very rough. It's very rough. But that'll give you some sense. Okay? The other thing is just to keep in mind to fill you with the rest of the context. Okay? It should become clear why then, for a Bodhisattva, they want to achieve enlightenment. Yes? Is that clear? I need to connect the dots, I think. Right? Because what is the unique, motivating factor of bodhisattvas? Great compassion. Remember that phrase, enthused by great compassion, you taught the Holy Dharma to overcome all wrong views, to Gautam Buddha prostrate. Okay? So both the bodhisattvas and the Buddhas are endowed with great compassion for all sinning beings. Okay? The one who's going after nirvana, right? Actually their main goal is for themselves to be free from suffering. You know, it's not that they don't want all sinning beings to be free from suffering, but their main goal is to get rid of their own suffering. Okay? Okay. Yes, you can say that. But okay. So then these bodhisattvas, they have compassion for all sinning beings. But not just wishing that they're free, but also saying, okay, I myself must do something about this, right? May all sinning beings be free from suffering. You know, it's fine and good, but, you know, doesn't really do much directly, right? You know, if I'm hungry, you know, you say, I hope you find a delicious meal. It's like, I'm still hungry, right? So these bodhisattvas then, or even before the bodhisattvas actually, they think, okay, not just may sentient beings be free from suffering, but I myself have to do something about it. I have to free them from suffering. If I don't do it, then who will? So, more courage, more taking personal responsibility that happens. But then they see, in my current state, I have limited ability to benefit others. You know? I have mistakes myself. When I explain things, I'm not using the correct words, people get confused. When I give people advice, I make mistakes because I don't know what's happening in the future. Right? So all these things. I'll take questions at a certain point, but until then, please let me speak. Okay? So what was I saying? Huh? No, after that. Oh yes, making mistakes. Yeah. So then, because I have, not developed my own qualities to their fullest extent. But if I'm able to do that, and especially attain the state of omniscience, means, enlightenment, then I'll be able to, know exactly what to say at the right time to everyone according to their needs and according to their mental state. Okay? And therefore, they set as their goal to attain enlightenment. Okay? Right? So then, you see how those two come together. The main obstacle for the attainment of enlightenment is the obscuration to omniscience. Right? So that's the main thing that the bodhisattvas are trying to abandon. The main thing they're trying to abandon isn't the afflictions themselves. That's just like, a byproduct. The main thing they're trying to to abandon is the imprints of the afflictions. Because that's the one that prevents them from being omniscient, which is the one that prevents them from benefiting sentient beings in the best way. Because until they're omniscient, there's always some better way that they can benefit others. Okay? So we got that. The difference between nirvana, mere nirvana for oneself alone, and full enlightenment. We have that? Okay. Alright, so then we have those two, right? You can think about it like this. There's the object of attainment, nirvana, and omniscience or enlightenment. Then there's the main obscuration that prevents that from happening. So the main obstacle for the attainment of nirvana is afflictive emotions, afflictive obscurations, yes. And the main obstacle to the attainment of enlightenment? Yes, cognitive obscurations, obscurations of omniscience. The imprints of the ignorance grasping to the false self. Okay? Alright. So now, how is the obscurations to liberation abandoned?
By abandoning grasping to self.
Yes, well by how that is done? By realizing that the object grasped by the ignorant mind doesn't exist. Meditating on it, so that's the main object of meditation. Now, that's also the main object of meditation for the bodhisattvas, shunyata. But the difference is, those bodhisattvas, they are meditating on emptiness, motivated by or conjoined with bodhicitta. Bodhicitta being?
Desire to attain enlightenment for all sentient beings.
Yes, okay. Wish to attain. Yeah, enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay? So that's the difference. That's in a quite rough, but pretty complete. Yeah? What do you think? Archana? Yeah? That's good, that's good. Alright. So that's the Mahayana. The main goal of the Mahayana then is to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And as great as that wish is, then they can't just leave it as a wish. They have to do the practices that lead to enlightenment. Okay? And so, this book now, The Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life, as we've said, someone besides Wangdu, can you tell me the name of this text in Tibetan? Yes. Someone other than Wangdu.
Jampa Sem Choe La Chupa.
Janchu Sempe Chupa La Jupa. Okay? Nice. Okay, so you know in Sanskrit, okay? Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra, right? So maybe in Sanskrit might be easier for you, right? Bodhisattva, you know, right? Charya, conduct, right? Avatara, like engaging in, right? Entering, right? Entering, would you say? Engaging, yes? Something like this, okay? So literally engaging in the Bodhisattva conduct. right? So this text, that's subject matter, you know. How then how one engages in the Bodhisattva conduct. Okay? So then what is the Bodhisattva conduct? We said in a rough way, remember I was saying, well, it's very rough. See, the way to abandon the obscurations to omniscience is to meditate on on emptiness, conjoined with the mind of Bodhicitta. Right? Yes, rough. But how that becomes powerful, right, is because they collect also a lot of merit. We've heard of the two collections, the merit the collection of wisdom and the collection of merit. Okay, we haven't? No problem. So anyway, you've seen in this, I mentioned in some other times, right? Actually, the main practice of bodhisattvas is the 6 perfections. You've heard those? 6 perfections? Yes? Generosity, ethical discipline, patience, joyous effort, meditation, and wisdom. Right? Okay. So, what I was saying is, yes, the kind of the real way to abandon is the meditation on emptiness conjoined with bodhicitta. But these bodhisattvas, they're not just meditating on emptiness all the time. They get up from their meditative poise and then performing all sorts of good deeds. Practicing generosity, you know, maintaining ethical discipline, practicing patience, all these things, right? Okay? So those first 3 comprise what we call the method side. The collection of, you can say, merit. Sonam Gitso. Yeah. And then the last 2, meditation and wisdom, comprise what we call the collection of wisdom or transcendental wisdom. Geshe Gitso. And then the 4th one, enthusiastic effort. We're getting to that next chapter, but what that basically means is to have a liking towards practicing virtue. It means this is the main thing that's going to help us overcome laziness. So when we have that thought of enthusiastic perseverance, when we're practicing generosity, then that enthusiasm becomes part of a collection of merit. But when it's in relation to meditating on emptiness, it becomes part of the collection of wisdom. Okay? So, then just the last thing to know, and then you know everything about enlightenment. There's actually 2 things. Those 2 collections then become the cause of the form body of the Buddha, and then the cause of the omniscient mind of Buddha. Okay? So, Acharya Nagarjuna talks about this in the Ratnavali, the Precious Garland. Okay? So those 2 collections need to happen need to be brought to completion. It's not that you first attain the omniscient mind of the Buddha and then later you attain the body. They have to be both brought to completion. So these bodhisattvas, they alternate. In meditative equipoise, they're meditating on emptiness, right? Then they get up, they do the collection of merit. Then after, they go back, meditate on emptiness. And they keep alternating like that so they can complete the 2 collections. Okay? Anyway, where we are right now, we've been going through this text, and well, we're on the third of the 6 perfections, the perfection of patience. Okay, so now I'll open it to questions, but just on what I've talked about in the first 75 minutes of today. Everything I've talked about today is clear?
And
Really?
I have a question.
Okay.
So, you say the reason why the mind of Bodhicitta is more powerful than, say, if you are motivated by renunciation or something, is because of the collection of merit. So, what is the connection? Is it that the mind of with lot of merit is more blissful, or
I'm sorry, what?
why the mind of with Bodhicitta you are able to collect a lot of merit?
Yes.
So when you meditate on emptiness with motivated by Bodhicitta, you are able to remove the cognitive obscuration. Is that correct?
Uh-huh.
Why is the mind of Bodhicitta and the collection of merit give rise to such a powerful mind? What's the connection? Does it become more subtle when it's more blissful? Or how does it become more powerful?
Okay. Do you have anyone here a question? Okay. She's saying that I'm saying that the mind meditating on emptiness, conjoined bodhicitta is more powerful. So how does the mind of bodhicitta make the meditation on emptiness more powerful? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a few ways to approach this. Okay? One is, you see, in general, and this is for both the, okay, I think Shantideva talks about this in the first chapter, where he says, if merely wishing that a sentient being, right, is free of a headache, if that collects a huge amount of merit, right, then no need to mention wishing that all sentient beings are free of all their suffering. Right? Shandi?
Yes, sir.
Yes? You seen that in first chapter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what does that mean? So one, there is just a mere multiplying factor. Like if you wish one sentient being be free from suffering, it's great. Okay. If you wish one sentient being is free from a headache, that's like, where's the sense of it? 21, great. Right? Ale, living creatures. Okay. Yeah. And then also later it says, the world honors as virtuous one who sometimes gives a little plain food disrespectfully to a few beings, which satisfies them for only half a day. That's 32. Right? Okay? So one is, if you do something virtuous in relation to a few sentient beings, right, alleviating their misery or giving them food, you collect a lot of merit. But now you're talking about for all sentient beings. So then that means in relation to each and every sentient being, there's a multiplying effect. Yes? Okay. So that, in general, makes all of the either merit or transcendental wisdom more powerful. But the other thing that is there is, at least in the sutra context, they talk about, you see, the collection of merit, okay? What you do in post-meditative equipoise, okay? Okay, it's like this. When do you go from second ground to third ground? Sorry, this is a little bit above your head. You don't know the grounds, right? Vishanti, when do you go from second ground to third ground?
When you've perfected the second to third ground is when you achieve a perfection
or any ground to another.
Your post meditative, you go into the next,
Huh?
you perfect the next perfection.
So I'm not taking this off in disgust. There's something a bit itchy. I think my ears are getting sweaty. It's not like that. It's not quite comfortable. Oh man, anyway. Actually, I'm just realizing to answer it in that way is going to open up a whole can of worms. Okay. Have you studied grounds and paths, Shanti?
Yes.
Oh, you have? Huh? Is that a yes?
Yes, Venerable.
Oh, I see. This question was unanswered at that time?
I've forgotten, Venerable.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna say it, and then if you don't get it, then it's okay. Right? Right, Shanti?
Yes,
I'll
Venerable.
give you one shot because we have to get going. Okay? Alright. So, on each ground, as you know, and sorry, this might only be for people who have studied this before. Okay? So the rest, if you don't get it, yeah, it's a whole like 3-4 month class. Okay? So at each ground, yes, there are some particular obscurations that are embedded on that ground, right? Okay? So, for example, there's the grasping to true existence has like the great, the middle great, the small great, the great middle, the middle, the small middle, right? You know this? The nine types, right? Hello?
Yes, Venerable.
Okay. So, let's say someone on the second ground, okay, they're abandoning the great,
Yeah.
okay? But over the course of the second ground, they're meditating on emptiness, not once, but many times. Direct realization, right? Now, when they go from second to third ground, they're going from meditative equipoise to meditative equipoise, right? The last moment of the second ground is the uninterrupted path, and then the first second of the third ground is the path of release. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So now, what makes it such that that meditation at the last second of the second ground becomes a direct antidote to the great ignorance grasping to, true existence?
If you have got ethical discipline, well,
Yeah, okay. Anyway,
if you've done it enough times, then it becomes.
no. If they're a collection of merit, if it's conjoined with as much collection of merit, you know, that's what I'm saying. They don't just meditate on emptiness over and over again. They have to conjoin it with the collection of merit in the post-meditative equipoise. Right? So then when they've collected of merit, then that makes their next meditation on emptiness strong enough to be able to abandon the great grades of the karasa, denzin champo, the great grasping to true existence. Do you understand?
Yes, I understood.
Does that apply even before the path and grounds? Like,
so yeah, that's the thing. I mean, and that's okay. Now, sorry, everyone can pay attention now. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to exclude you, but basically what I was saying is, even though we think, oh, I gotta meditate on emptiness, the collection of merits matters a lot. That's why Tobonko Rinpoche, and now, since then, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Lama Tsongkhapa first of all, Manjushri first of all, you know. When Lama Tsongkhapa asked Manjushri, you know, how to realize emptiness, then Manjushri told Tsongkhapa to first purify negativities and collect merit, right? Not just, then just go do it, go meditate again and again, okay? Because our obscurations are so so thick, then even, you know, we study the text over and over again, we can't do it. We can't understand. Okay? So, then following that, Tobonko Rinpoche said, for us beginners, it's more important to focus on purification and accumulation of merit. Then when that happens, we can get realization. So, you understand? So, Shanti, the answer to my answer to your question, do you understand fully?
Yes, sir.
2 points.
No, there were only 1 or 2 points mentioned. Third, you said this third point.
Okay. Anyway, you think about it then. I mean, yeah. Yes.
So, you mentioned the objective of meditation of a bodhisattva is emptiness and collection of wisdom and merits. So this collection...
What? Wait. I said...
Something about collection of wisdom and merits.
Okay, yeah.
Collection of wisdom and merits. And you also mentioned about 6 perfections.
Yes.
So my query is on the collection of wisdom. When you say wisdom is, just help me understand. Wisdom, is it like your daily experiences in life? Your present?
No. Okay.
Examples of a collection of wisdom.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so...
Wisdom can be varied.
Yeah. So I'm going to make it very clear. Okay. We're saying, okay, there's a framework, there's a table in my mind that I was envisioning, right? We have the practitioner, someone wanting to attain nirvana, and a bodhisattva, right? Then we have their goal, their object of attainment, Okay? You can draw this in a table. Right? Object of attainment, object of abandonment, object of meditation. Okay? So, for a, for lack of a better word, we call it a Hinayana practitioner. Okay? Someone who wants liberation for themselves alone. Then, what is their object of attainment? Personal liberation, or nirvana. Right? What is their object of abandonment? Obscurations to liberation, or afflictive obscurations, or the afflictions and their seeds. Okay? What is our object of meditation? Emptiness. Okay? Can we do that for a bodhisattva? Can we say? So what is our object of attainment?
Buddha.
Full enlightenment, Buddhahood. What is their object of abandonment? Obscurations to omniscience. Or cognitive obscurations, or what is that? The imprints of ignorance grasping to the self. Object of meditation is still emptiness. Okay? But, then I was saying, since our objects of meditation is the same, what's the difference? One is conjoined with bodhicitta, one isn't. That's what, then Chandi's question came in. Okay, so that was just one thing. But then I said, remember, I was being a little bit rough, a little bit, it's a little bit incomplete. Because, yes, their main object of meditation is emptiness, conjoined with bodhicitta, but their main practice is the 6 perfections. They practice all 6 perfections. Because they need to complete the 2 collections of merit and transcendental wisdom to attain the 2 bodies, the form body of Buddha and the Dharmakaya, or the omniscient mind of Buddha. Okay? Then I put the 6 perfections and kind of goshikya, right? Put them, relating them to the collection of merit and the collection of transcendental wisdom. So of the 6 perfections, which go to the collection of merit? Verse 3. Collection of transcendental wisdom? Last 2. And the 4th? Enthusiastic perseverance? It depends. If that perseverance is related to the first 3 perfections, it goes into the collection of merit, and it goes to the last 2, like that. Okay, so now the question is, what then, if we say the perfection of wisdom, or the collection of wisdom, what kind of wisdom? Knowing the capital of Nairobi is that wisdom. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when one is meditating on emptiness, one is collecting the collection of wisdom. Only that. Only that. Yeah, I think so.
So it says transcendental wisdom. Like, can you give an example? Okay, just thinking about, knowing about Nairobi is
No.
just being
Emptiness. Realization of emptiness. That's all that's in there. Why is it transcendental? Transcending samsara. What enables us to do that? Realizing emptiness. That's the only path. You understand? Okay. Yes? You got this? The bodhisattvas, okay, this is Arya Bodhisattva. What are they doing? Meditating directly on emptiness. Then their stock of the collection of transcendental wisdom is increasing. Arising from that, meditative equipoise, performing acts of generosity. Maintaining ethicalness and all that, they're collecting the collection of merit. They go back, okay, yes, now next time. Meditating on emptiness. So, I mean, I would have to double check, but my hypothesis now is, during the post-meditative equipoise, are they collecting any of the collection of transcendental wisdom? I'm not sure.
So only collection of merit supports collection of wisdom, not the other way around.
Huh?
Only collection of merit supports collection of wisdom, but not the other way around. Other one also will happen.
I mean,
If the wisdom is utilized for.
it depends what you mean by support, right? Because, you could say, if you really had, the realization that all phenomena were empty of inherent existence, then your clinging, your grasping to material items would go down a lot, right?
Yes.
And that's what prevents you from engaging in acts of generosity, right?
Yeah.
So in some way,
It supports.
you could say that supports, right? So you need to define those terms.
So how do you define for a layman meditation on emptiness? What is emptiness? There's so many theories.
Yes. Okay. So again, I'm just going to give you the right words. The lack of inherent existence. Empty means empty of what? Empty of what? Right? Empty of inherent existence means phenomena do not inherently exist. So then all the same synonyms I used, right? Lack of true existence, lack of objective existence, lack of independent existence, lack of an object's existence by its own characteristics, existence from its own side, like that. All of that doesn't exist. Therefore, it's empty of that type of existence.
So it has a potential where we can have a good, where we can work out by putting the seed of happiness. It has a potential.
What is it?
Has a potential.
Huh?
Does it have a potential?
Emptiness doesn't have potential. It's a bit of a strange question. So, emptiness is not a functioning thing. Okay? Anyway, what do you mean by potential? Emptiness, is not a cause, right? It doesn't give rise to an effect. So normally when I think of potential, it's meaning that it can give rise to an effect. It's not changing moment by moment, right? So it just is. But maybe you have a different, something else is happening and, you mean something else. So what do you mean? Does emptiness have any potential?
First we meditate on lack of inherent existence. Right?
Yes.
So it is that I was just going through a lot of theories. So I just help me get it clarified. If emptiness is there's nothing, but still there's something where you can work towards adding the water for the seed of happiness. Is it a ground for creation? Where which can also lead to enlightenment. That's something you told, right?
Yeah.
Which goes through between nirvana and
Yeah.
enlightenment, which passes through.
See, I didn't use that kind of language, and I wouldn't. Because, you see, this is a shedding away. It's not like growing something. It's shedding away the ignorance. The ignorance is what prevents us from attaining nirvana. So we abandon it rather than growing something. Do you know what I mean?
You're cleaning it up.
We have a, ignorant mind, an object to be abandoned. That's why we were saying in that we have an object of attainment. The object of attainment is attained through abandoning the object of abandonment. So it's a clearing away. Yes, you're abandoning it. You're destroying it. Now, I guess on a more poetic level, right? If you want to be poetic about it, then yes, I mean, we all blossom into being Buddhas or something. We talk like that in a poetic way. But I'm not a poet right now. So I want you to understand, it is through the direct realization of emptiness and meditating on it again and again that has the power to then abandon its opposite view, the grasping to true existence. We have this ignorant mind grasps to true existence, means it holds on, it believes something to be true that actually does not exist. So we have to discover that this thing doesn't exist. That discovery then destroys the mind that holds on and believes in it. And that's the way to enlightenment, or to even liberation. It's a discovery. Emptiness is the non-existence of the false way of existence that ignorance believes to exist. Okay?
Makes sense.
Okay.
And you also mentioned a statement that a bodhisattva can be, he wants to wish the good for others, the enlightenment of all sentient beings, but again he will be in a very limited capability.
Yes.
So can you explain on that? Because even we might be very limited first by ourselves.
Yeah.
What do we wish for the enlightenment? What did you mean? And
Okay.
how is it applicable to our daily life?
Okay. So remember what a bodhisattva is, right? Dilshad said something and I corrected her, right? So a bodhisattva isn't just someone who wishes, to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, but is someone who is not yet enlightened, who wishes to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So someone who is not enlightened necessarily isn't, perfect in their qualities. Since they're not perfect in their qualities, since they haven't abandoned all their faults, then their way of working for all sentient beings is limited. Right? Because you have these, it's relative, right? Relative to Buddha, everyone who is not a Buddha is not as good as a Buddha. Therefore is limited. Right? Yes? You understand? So that's what I'm saying. These bodhisattvas, necessarily not Buddha. Therefore, necessarily have faults. Necessarily have good qualities that they can cultivate more and more. And that is why they're training. That is why they're practicing. So they can complete their good collections and become Buddha.
So they're capable enough to wish for the enlightenment of others.
Yes. To wish, I mean, we can wish for all sentient beings to be free from suffering. I hope we do, right? That is, you know, that is coming. That mind comes even before one becomes a bodhisattva. No. Bodhicitta is not coming before one becomes a bodhisattva. The uncontracted one. The wish that others be free from suffering. That I hope we all have. Right? So that's, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that's insignificant, but, you know, yeah. Okay? So how then do we apply it in our lives? Then we know. I mean, just think. Well, we will do a few things. If we just meditate on compassion, great. It's good. May all sentient beings be free from suffering. Right? But then you should also think, well, is this mere wishing others to be free from suffering? Is that freeing anyone from suffering? Right?
Sometimes we are not capable of
Okay.
helping them to come out of that suffering.
Yes, and why is that? Essentially, because we're not Buddhas, actually. It's really hard to benefit sentient beings.
What is our capability of, like, okay, this is our limits.
Yes, great. So then you also have to recognize that. This is my limit.
So for example, we can feed around 5 to 10.
Yeah.
What about thousands of people?
Great. So you think about that.
Will that
And then you should be like, oh my gosh, I wish I didn't have limits in the amount that I could benefit others. Right? Wouldn't it be great? Oh. And you think, okay, how do I become, you know, unlimited, or how can I benefit others in the best way? I need to become a Buddha first. Therefore I'm going to do that. So that's the an aspiring bodhisattva goes through those 3 stages before they become bodhisattva. The first, may all sentient beings be free from suffering. Then thinking, okay, well, it's not just good enough to wish that they're free from suffering. I actually have to do something about it. Because if I don't do something about it, who else will? Therefore, I will free all sentient beings from suffering. But then you think, wait a minute. Although I say I will free all sentient beings from suffering, I can't.
I have to free myself.
Well, because I'm imperfect. Just think like that. Put it in simple terms, right? But a Buddha is... So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become Buddha. Okay? Alright. Okay. Well, what shall we do? So anyway, if you have all that, you know, please, you know, go through your notes and like really make it tight. You know? Or, you know, actually this, whatever, hour and a half we've done, actually content-wise, you know, it was very hard. You know, not many lectures are going through this much content in an hour and a half, I think. Okay? It's very dense. I know it's tough, a lot of new concepts, perhaps. but is good. If you have this knowledge, you know a lot about the path to enlightenment and the path to nirvana and the differences. Okay? Really.
And Shanti said something about cognitive obscurations. Obscurations. What is that?
Okay.
An example.
So this again, you know, really like a table, yeah? Like a 2x2 table. Okay? You can have. So, you saw in the video, I mentioned this at least, I don't know, 2-3 times. I'm going to mention a 4th time. And I hope 4 is enough for you. Okay? We have the grasping to the self. We have the seeds of the grasping to the self, which is what? The potential. The grasping to the self is a mind. The seeds of that is the potential for that mind to arise again. The imprints of that is, remember, the garlic and onions.
I understood that.
Okay.
I was
So,
that,
so those imprints are the cognitive obscurations. Cognitive obscurations, obscurations to omniscience. When you have those cognitive obscurations, or the imprints of the self-grasping mind, what's the symptom of that? Things appear to be truly existent. Things appear in a false way. Yes, they're not that way. Okay? So, the obscurations to omniscience, giving an example, this is the only thing it is. The imprints of the self-grasping mind. Imprints of the self-grasping mind, which is different from the seeds of the self-grasping mind. Seeds of the self-grasping mind is the potential for the self-grasping mind to arise again in that individual's continuum. The imprints of the self-grasping mind is the cause, or for the appearance of true existence to arise in that person's continuum. Okay? Wangdu, you with me? Great.
I was just trying to connect the cognitive behavioral therapy with this.
No, don't. Yeah, see, again, there could be similar words, but it's totally different context. Cognitive obscurations, it's actually shidrip. I didn't use those words. Those are Shanti's words. Shidrip, I say, obscurations to omniscience. That's what's preventing us from being omniscient. Who's omniscient? The Buddha. Okay? Now, they say cognitive she. She is like to know something. And then some say to cognize something. Right? Fine. So different translators say different things. But you have to know what it means. It means what is, preventing someone from being omniscient. Does cognitive behavior therapy talk about the existence of omniscience? No. So don't bring that in. Keep everything siloed for now. You need to know the specific reference of the words in this context. It's very important. Otherwise, mixing so many things up, then it just becomes like, I don't know. Yeah, mixed up. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. So, yeah. Clear? Yes? Dusha? Alright. Okay. Any more questions then? Alright, so maybe we'll stop. Because, yeah, if we go any more, then it's just going to open up a new topic that we can't then close within time. But anyway, yeah, therefore, as we were saying, Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra, engaging in the Bodhisattva's deeds. The Bodhisattva's deeds are 6 perfections, yes, and then those are treated in sequence here in this book. Okay, so now just to review, yeah? To kind of bring it all together. We have then this book, the Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra, engaging in the Bodhisattva's deeds. The Bodhisattva's deeds are the 6 perfections. Why do the Bodhisattvas practice 6 perfections? So they can accumulate the 2 accumulations. 2 accumulations being the accumulation of merit, the accumulation of transcendental wisdom, which are then the causes of the form body of the Buddha and the wisdom body of the Buddha, or Dharmakaya, yeah? The body of the Buddha, the 2 bodies of the Buddha, okay? So yeah, they then want to achieve those 2 bodies of the Buddha because, well, the omniscient mind of the Buddha, right, then knows all phenomena, is omniscient, and therefore knows exactly what to say, how to guide sentient beings so they can, be liberated from suffering. Because, as we said, the Buddhas don't wash away sins with water, they don't remove suffering with their hands, they don't transfer their realizations to another, but they liberate sentient beings through teaching the reality. So, since the ultimate view of reality is so difficult, right, then the Buddha needs to know each one's individual karma to then give them the teaching that's going to affect their mind in the best way. Yes? And therefore the Buddha will guide sentient beings in a gradual way. Yes? Okay. So that's then the need to attain enlightenment is that. So they can guide sentient beings in the best way. Why then they want to guide sentient beings in the best way? Because they have, great compassion that wishes to liberate them all from suffering. Okay? Okay. So let's dedicate the merit. So due to all the merit that we've accumulated in our time here tonight, may all sentient beings, vast and disgrace, be free from all their suffering and abide in good happiness for life and forever. And we also dedicate for the long lives of the spiritual friends, the flourishing of the Holy Dharma, and the mind of Bodhicitta to arise in the hearts of all sentient beings. Okay, so thank you very much. We have another class tomorrow from 10 to 1.